Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. Today I'm talking about the SAVE Act and whether you think it's a problem that non-citizens are voting in our elections, or is it? Call me right now on the show live, 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. We're on the radio here in San Antonio on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word. Also KNTH 1070 and 103.3 FM in Houston, Texas. I'd like to hear somebody from Houston. Call in and let me know your opinion about the SAVE Act. Let me know whether you think that there's non-citizens voting in elections, and whether I should be deporting people, and whether we should fund Homeland Security. We're going to be talking about all this stuff because this is a hidden legal issue blind spot. And so now it's time to discover your hidden legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. So first, I'm going to be talking about the SAVE Act and whether or not non-citizens are really voting. So I want you to call the show and let me know about that. People on X have been posting about this a lot recently. Users are sharply divided about whether or not that's a real problem. And I found a case where it actually happened, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. First, I'm going to talk about the proposed statute. The SAVE Act is short for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. It requires individuals to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. So this is a registration requirement. Right now, I think when you register to vote, you just answer a bunch of questions. One of the questions is, are you a citizen? And you swear under oath, I guess, whether or not you are, but you don't have to give any proof of your citizenship at the time of registration. I'll talk about another court case where a state actually did have that requirement and how all this ties together. So the SAVE Act prohibits states from accepting and processing an application to register to vote in a federal election unless the applicant presents documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. And the bill specifies what documents are considered acceptable proof of U.S. citizenship, such as identification that complies with the REALID Act of 2005 that indicates U.S. citizenship. The bill also prohibits states from registering an individual to vote in a federal election unless at the time the individual applies to register to vote, the individual provides documentary proof and requires states to establish an alternative process under which an applicant may submit other evidence to demonstrate U.S. citizenship. And so some of the people that are posting on X that are opposed to the SAVE Act, they say that it's too hard to prove citizenship. People don't know where their birth certificate is. They don't have a passport. Or they're married and they had a different name on their birth certificate, and so they say it's too hard. Do you think it's too hard to prove citizenship? Call me right now at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. Is this something that's needed? Do we need to stop non-citizens from voting in our elections? Do you know somebody that voted? Have you heard of this at the voter registration office? So the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act is federal legislation that amends the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. So there was a different law that addressed this same question. But I want to bring up another point that a friend of mine was talking about. He said, aren't there other laws that require you to present identification? Like when you go to the grocery store and you buy a 6-pack of beer, you have to show an ID to prove that you're old enough to buy the beer, because there's a law that says you have to be over the age of 21. And so you have to present an ID there. Also, I learned under the Immigration Nationality Act, aliens must carry their alien registration card. Now, I know that some people out there in Radio Land, like my friend Shannon, who's with me sometimes, doesn't like that word alien. And I'm not saying it to gaslight you. I'm saying it because that's what the word in the law that means a non-citizen. So non-citizens, if they're here legally, they have to carry their registration card. And if somebody asks them for it, they have to show it. What are some other things that you have to show your ID? Well, when you go to the airport, domestic air travel, it's part of the REALID Act of 2005. You have to present the REALID compliant state driver's license or state ID, or a passport, or a military ID, or the DHS Trusted Traveler Card at TSA checkpoints. You have to present your ID when you're opening a bank account because of the Bank Secrecy Act of 1970 and the USA Patriot Act of 2001. You have to show an ID card to prove that you're authorized to work in the United States. Yeah, if you go to work for a new employer, they're going to ask you to fill out an I-9, and they're going to ask you for identification. And there's all types of different combinations of different forms of identification that you can present there, like a driver's license, like a social security card, like a birth certificate, like a passport, and there's some others that aren't coming to my mind right now. Another thing that you need an ID for is purchasing firearms because of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 1993. For background checks with NICS, you need to show an ID when you apply for federal benefit programs like Social Security and veterans benefits. You have to present an ID if you're driving. You have to have a license to drive. If an officer pulls you over and you don't present your identification, you can get in trouble for that. All 50 states plus Washington, D.C. require a valid driver's license on your person while operating a vehicle. Some states do require voter ID at the polls. There's 36 states that require that. 23 states require a photo. 13 states will accept a non-photo. The Help America Vote Act of 2002 mandates ID for first-time mail registrants in all states. If a police officer stops you on the sidewalk and asks you for identification, in Texas at least, you have to give your name. You can't just not answer any questions. So now the police do have to have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to stop and start asking you questions. They have to have reasonable suspicion to stop you and pull you over on the highway. So if you think that the officer didn't have reasonable suspicion or probable cause, contact your friendly criminal defense lawyer. Another thing that you need an identification for, that's what I began with, was alcohol, also tobacco. But have you ever tried to buy the decongestant medication over the counter at your local pharmacy? You have to present an ID for that as well. So it's common for us to have to present identification in various situations. So do you think it's unreasonable for people to refuse to present identification when it comes to vote? Call me now at the station, 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. Give me your opinion. Does this make you upset? Does this make you concerned about the country and where we're going? Here's some opinions that I read on X about the SAVE Act. Some people are opposed to it, like I said before. Here's somebody, Representative Tim Burchett, says it disgusts me. It's racist. Really? I don't know. And then there's others that support it. Representative Daniel Goldman says, do you have a passport? Do you know where your birth certificate is? If the answer is no, then you can't vote. Well, I think people would probably find those documents if they knew that it was required to vote. If you go to get your driver's license for the very first time, or if you accidentally let it expire, you have to dig that stuff up out of your files, and your Social Security card, your birth certificate, your passport, whatever you have to prove your identification in order for the DMV to issue your driver's license, because they want to make sure you are who you say you are. Oh, here's another thing you need an ID for. If a notary is going to acknowledge your signature on a legal document. Again, the notary is there to verify you are who you say you are, so that people aren't impersonating you. You don't want people impersonating you. You don't want people voting under your name, and then you get to the polls and then they won't let you vote because they say you already voted. So this is some of the reasons why identification is being required. Again, talking about the SAVE Act. It's a federal proposed law that did pass the House of Representatives, has not yet passed the Senate. And so if you're concerned about this, call your senator, email your senator, write a letter like we did in the olden days. So I want to know what you think about this. Post a comment on Facebook. If you're watching this later and it's on YouTube, post a comment there. I want to know what people think about this, because if you watch the news, the big media is trying to say that it's not necessary, it's not legal, it's going to disenfranchise people, it's going to make it harder to vote. Let me know what you think. Call the show, 210-308-8867. When we come back, I'm going to talk about some existing federal laws about elections. So stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Most families don't realize they have hidden legal blind spots until it's too late. Wills, trusts, Medicaid planning, even protecting a business. These are the kinds of issues attorney Todd Marquardt helps uncover before they become problems. Todd is the host of Talk Law Radio, where each week he guides listeners through the legal challenges families, veterans, and business owners face, while showing them the practical steps to protect what matters most. Catch Talk Law Radio, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word, and now in Houston on AM 1070 and 103.3 FM The Answer, or anytime on YouTube. Planning isn't just about documents. It's about peace of mind, security for loved ones, and building a legacy that lasts. Don't wait for a crisis. Do it before you die.